Welcome. Happy
Soup
Sunday,
time.
Clayton. Happy
Yes,
Sunday,
happy
soup time.
Sunday to you, sir.
Happy Sunday to everyone. It's Watch Soup Sunday. I am your co-host, Bobby Legs, joined by my other co-host here, Clayton from the Watchdog Podcast. Clayton, tell me, man, how was your weekend?
Good, good. Went to Friday night SmackDown, WWE SmackDown. It was in Providence. Big doing. CM Punk came back, so that was exciting.
Yeah.
It was a tribute to the troops, so that was cool. The Army Navy game was at Gillette here
Oh, yeah.
this weekend. So yeah, it was really cool. It was well done. WWE puts on top notch productions. So yeah, we had a suite. My buddy's brother-in-law's company had a suite rented out. So yeah, like I was telling you off air, like the beer fridge just keeps getting magically replenished, and
That's
the
awesome.
food with the junk food. So I ate like crap and kind of drank like crap. So yesterday was pretty useless. And then today the weather was lousy, so I didn't get a whole
Yeah.
lot done this weekend, but it was a good time. So
Yeah, sometimes you just need one of those weekends, right? Where you just don't really get
right,
anything done, you
right.
know? Hey, what do you have on wrist
Oh,
tonight?
I don't even need to show it. The FXD.
Yes.
I did
Uh,
wear the Moser to the SmackDown.
well, as you do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
As
right, right,
as
right. It's blue,
as
blue brand. So
um, yeah, so I don't know if you caught like, on Tuesday, I had a stream on, if I had to wear one
yes,
watch in my collection for 6
yes,
months, and, like, I feel like that's I mean, you're gonna blow that away. I mean, like, it's 6 months, I mean, like, that's gonna be nothing.
yeah.
You already worn it,
We'll
like, what,
see.
like, 2 like, what, 9 weeks in a row, 10 weeks in a row?
Yeah, something like that. Like going on 2.5 months, I think.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Awesome.
you could do
Well,
it.
speaking of that stream, the watch that I ended up picking, the Zen 356. I'm wearing it this evening. The Zen
Nice.
356 Limited. Yeah, love this watch. Raining. Who cares? Who cares? It's got a 100-meter water resistance. It should handle the
That's
rain that we
long
had
sleeve
today.
weather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Hey, let's say hello to the chat, and Wolfie, if you watch this tomorrow, don't worry, I'll timestamp it so you can skip the intros. Wolfie gave me a tongue lashing this week about the intros. I'm gonna have to work something out on my regular streams and the non-watch soup streams where maybe I cut down the greetings to the chat. I don't know, Wolfie. He's got some sway, the Austrian. You don't want to anger him, so uh, I'll put a timestamp for you, Wolfie. Mr. Cassio's here first. James Duffy, how are you? Chaz from the Berg is here. Wilson, what is up? Deech, no soup for you. Oh, no. There'll be soup. There'll be soup for you. Caliber is here. How you doing, Caliber? Good to see you. Jay Thor is here. And Mez9, what is up? Okay. Not too many shout outs going out today, Wolfie. You'll be happy to know. So let's get this going, right? Let's
Awesome.
start off with the first video this week, and that is Watchfinder and Company 10 Reasons the Omega Seamaster Will Never Be Top Talk. Clayton, take this away.
I picked this one because it did spark a little debate in a few groups I'm in.
Hmm.
So this is a watch I've owned 3 different versions of. I haven't always been that complimentary of a couple things about it, but I felt like he was a little hard on it. And I was
Hmm.
actually found myself defending it a little bit when I was watching the video. So we're gonna see what everybody thinks. So he says the Omega Seamaster is iconic, but it's not the best. It loses by a nose, by the fine hairs on the tip of your nose. And he talks about the Tudor Black Bay, that it's half the price. All the parts that matter in the S&P are present with the Black Bay, which I don't know
Hmm.
about that, but way cheaper, right?
Hmm.
If you're going to buy a non Rolex, you might as well buy. Oh no, what is it? Anyway, if you're gonna buy the not Rolex, you should buy the not Rolex made by Rolex, right? That's what
Right,
he
right.
says. Tudor is about 70% cheaper right now. He thinks they're running on pretty skinny margins. They're maybe a loss leader in some instances for Rolex, but that may catch up. But for now, if it's a pretty good value proposition compared to the S&P. And then he goes into the things that he doesn't necessarily like about it. I feel like he's made videos saying the Seamaster is a Submariner killer, and
Right.
said
They
like
all
the
have.
complete
Right.
opposite of this
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I didn't expect him to come with this much hate for the Seamaster, but So he said that, they're just expensive. The most expensive SMP before precious metal is 9,500 pounds. That's it's titanium. It's No Time to Die, but that's more than a sub and well, about the same as a sub. Then he
Mm,
gets into the things he doesn't like. He doesn't like the helium escape valve. He said it's the peanut butter cup on the side. It's irrelevant. Sticks out like a sore thumb. Is it patented? Is that why they're using it? They have to use the patent that they have and stick it on there when some brands don't have one that juts out. They just have it like kind of flush with the case. Um, he said it's only useful in saturation diving. So really, unless you're doing some really serious diving, which you're probably not doing, you don't need it on there. I think that's kind of a hallmark of that watch. I actually like the way it looks. I don't even notice it. I've owned, like I said, 3 of them. Didn't even notice it.
yeah.
Then he said it's big. It wears well for its size, but they would sell a lot more if it were smaller. Like, why can't they make it a little bit smaller? Um, you know, Crazy idea. Make it the size people want.
Mm,
I thought it wore fine. Um, you know, it has lots of details, the waves, the scallop bezel, lyre lugs. It's fancy, but no one really cares about fancy on a diver, right? Nobody hates vanilla ice cream, but many people don't like rum raisin. So many people don't mind the waves, but those same people probably wouldn't mind if they weren't there, right?
mm,
And same for the lyre lugs. People like them, but probably wouldn't miss them if they were gone. I think the lyre lugs look cool. The waves, I can probably take or leave, but the lyre lugs, Omega trademark in my opinion. Way too many Seamasters. Omega's never heard of the paradox of choice. Apparently,
mm,
46 different versions of the SMP alone. Some have a date, some don't. We don't know why. Way too many types too. The Aquaterra is a Seamaster, the Planet Ocean, the regular Seamaster 300, that heritage model, the Railmaster, the Ploprof, the Bullhead Chronograph. Way, way, way too many. No taper on the bracelet. Looks like a tape measure. Just straight. This is one of the probably like the first problem I sort of agree with him on. Well, they have a lot of variations too. But no taper. Again, he said some people are fine with it, but the people who like the straight bracelet probably won't mind a taper. Not so much the other way around, right? And I love a tapered bracelet. Like
mhm,
a dramatic taper. I always say like I like the drama and that it's give me a really dramatic taper. I like it. The bezel is a letdown. This is my number one problem with the Seamaster 300. It looks great, but it's unpleasant to use. It's a terrible fidget spinner. He says, when you're turning a bezel, you should kind of want to turn it more. Like it be satisfying enough where you really can't stop. That's not the case with this. And the scalloped edges also make it just hard to grip. That's another problem I have with it. He said the perfect SMP doesn't exist. The Tudor Black Bay is kind of the perfect watch, and maybe that's a little boring, but he said maybe they seems like Tudor like sat a bunch of people down to polygraph machines and asked them what they like until they got like the truth out of them, and then they put that into a watch. It's kind of perfect. And he says the Seamaster is just chaos. It's all there, but it's kind of a scavenger hunt to find it on all the different models they have. He said it's best friends with Perfect, just not there yet.
mm.
But Perfect could be boring. And he says, does Omega want to be second best or best of the rest, or do they want to be their own thing entirely? So I know there's a watch you've talked about with Almond on your stream a couple weeks ago. We've talked about it. So, well, what do you think of his video on this watch? I thought he was a little too critical of it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like, it almost sounded like, he was critical for critical sake. Look, I
Right.
mean, I think there's a couple things why that he brought up that have some validity, right? Or at least that I agree on, right? And the bracelet being one, like, I have toyed with the idea of getting a Seamaster collection, and never did I think I was going to get it on bracelet, right? So like that's a hard no for me. I'm sure it's comfortable, but I just don't like that the way it looks, and I do like a nice taper. I've heard, and specifically from you, heard issues from about the bezel. That it's not really easily grip. You can really grip it and turn it. You have to like maybe hold it a certain way, and whatnot. So I don't know what the real world application is for that. Like let's say like in diving, like how easy that is or not to manipulate the helium valve, escape valve. While initially like really kind of like put me off, I don't even see it anymore. It doesn't really bother. Keep it for all I care. I don't, that's all good. I think where he is, I wouldn't say that he's off base, but something that he didn't bring up and wasn't and it didn't consider it was when he was talking about pricing with the Seamasters, how actually kind of expensive they are, right? Especially compared to a tutor, and a lot of them are around sub money and some above. I feel like he should have brought up the fact that in the secondary market you get a huge discount
Yep.
on these watches, right? And I don't know, until recently, maybe things have changed with Omega's strategy, and their AD relationships and their strategy with the discounts that they're able to give. I know with the Speed Masters, they're not as you know um, generous with the discounts. I'm not sure if they're that way with the Seamasters, but I mean, I think for years and years and years, people were expecting a 20-30% off on a Seamaster when they're buying it new. Maybe they're not getting it now, but on the secondary, that watch, it's almost like you drive it off the lot, and the pricing just tanks on that.
Right.
I wouldn't buy a Seamaster new from an AD or the boutique. I'll just wait till one that's 99.95% new, right? And save, like, thousands of dollars. I mean, look, Nashville Watch a couple months ago had my favorite Seamaster of all, the two-tone blue dial, blue bezel Seamaster for like 4,300. I know that thing retails for several thousand more, easily several more thousand, but I mean, like, at 4,300 to get a two-tone Seamaster,
Right.
great price, right? You know, the white dial Seamaster, the rubber. I think you've had that. I
Yep.
mean, you'll see those in the maybe around 4,100. I know that's one that's a favorite out there. The other ones, your regular typical run of the mill Seamasters, you've seen in the mid to high threes. You
Yep.
know what I mean? So I think you need to consider that. And he should have considered that in this argument when he was talking about price. Now, there's certification on those, right? They have a great a movement, a movement of the ages. You know what I mean? Iconic, the 8800 and coaxial movement. I mean, there's some good stuff in there. I didn't really understand or bought into the Tudor comparison, especially with the pricing. I think for me, the Omega is a superior watch, and when you factor in what you can get in the secondary, which is a bigger drop than what you can get Tudor in the secondary from its MSRP. I don't know. I mean, aesthetically, I like the Tudor because I like the snowflake hands, but to me, that the Omega Seamaster is a way better watch. You, Clayton, you've owned, like you said, two or three. What else? Hey, Mirabelle's here. What did you think?
So I'm probably opposite of you. I
Mm,
love the way the SMP looks. That's why I've gone back to it 3 different times. I own 3 different ones. I own the previous non-wave dial, just the, like, glossy black dial non-wave, and then I own the white one, and then I own the No Time to Die. So I will concede that the SMP is a better watch than the Black Bay 58, but the Black Bay 58 is a better diver for me personally.
mm,
I just like the way it wears a little bit better. Bracelets more comfortable, better, especially if you can get like the bronze Black Bay 58 with the T-fit clasp and the bezel action's better. I've always found my tutors to be more accurate than the Omegas I've owned.
mm.
Also, like
Okay.
they just keep killer time. The movement isn't as technically as advanced as the coaxial movements that Omega's using, but I've always just found them to be rock solid. So while the SMP is probably like, the better watch, objectively, subjectively, I prefer the Black Bay 58, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I've gone through a bunch of
It's,
each, so
yeah, and it's a matter of preference. Now,
yeah,
him going into, like, the amount of Seamasters out there, like, basically it's like a diner menu, right? There's like too many choices, and having like, I don't have a problem with, like, the Aquaterra being lumped up in the Seamaster. Look, they have like they have the Speed Masters, right? Which is their chronos, their racing or space influence chronos, right? There's Seamasters, which are just like, they're divers. They're the Aquaterra, which is like land, sea, that kind of stuff. And the Railmaster, maybe the Railmaster being lumped in with the Seamaster probably doesn't make any sense, right? But I think that's more of a, I mean, that line, the Seamaster line, has been in Omega for decades, right? Even
Yeah,
before they had like these like divers that they have now, right? I mean, like, they just had like a regular, like a Seamaster. It didn't look anything like a diver, right? The original
right.
ones.
More of a
Um,
dress watch almost.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
like I'm not going to get hung up too much on that aspect of it. Although, would it make it that big of a difference to me if they kind of like separate the catalog a little bit? I guess. I mean, that's not my forte. To me, it just doesn't make, just not that big of a deal. And it's definitely not an argument why the Seamaster won't be top dog in my mind. Just, you're just talking about a naming convention. You know what I mean? Like, is that really gonna?
Well, does it like yeah, is it that paradox of choice? Like there's so many, I don't know which one to buy. Or are they gonna come out with another one in 2 months that I'm gonna like better? So should I just wait for that one? I think that's the thing that happens with Grand Seiko sometimes too, because they make so many
Mm-hmm.
similar looking watches with maybe the same dial or
Hmm.
so it's like, oh,
Yeah, I don't
should I
get that
wait?
vibe. I don't get that. I don't feel overwhelmed when I see their Seamaster catalog.
Yeah,
I like one or two of them, right? I like that blue dial on a blue rubber with the two tone. That's the one. I mean, like, so it's not between. Oh, it's between that and I don't know. Do I like the two tone Aquaterra, or like, I like, I've never, like, maybe when I saw those watches, maybe when I saw like the Aquaterra last 2 years ago with the when it came out with the small second dial and the two. I was like, oh, I love that watch. And like, do I prefer that or the Seamaster? But not really, not anymore. Now it's
right.
just like, I'm not overwhelmed by their catalog like I am with like with Seiko. Like Seiko, the catalog is so huge that I feel like I don't know any of this. There's so many watches that I don't know about. With with Omega, it's big enough, but I mean, like, okay, I'm pretty sure I've seen them all though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I don't get that kind of overwhelmed feeling that there's going to be maybe another release that is kind of similar in a different colorway that I might want more. Like, I don't get hung up that way with Omega.
Do
Maybe
you
some
feel
people
like it
do.
diminishes the brand
Not at all.
at all? No?
No, I don't think what diminishes the brand to me is like they're hiking up the prices to,
Yeah.
that diminishes the brand more to me than anything else. I mean, and maybe they should be priced at that, but it just seems like the pricing has gone up dramatically in the last couple of years. There's been a push for a higher price point. But to me, it doesn't diminish. I mean, does it diminish it to you?
I don't know. I think it makes the probably and I don't really go on Omega's website. I typically go on websites of authorized dealers like
Yeah, like
Stalker
toppers or
or
something like that, right? Yeah.
Exquisite or
So
whatever.
mhm.
But I imagine if you are going on Omega's website, like it could be a bit hard to navigate if
Yeah.
you're going through 46
Mm,
different versions of the SMP,
mm,
or maybe you're like, Omega's a brand I've heard of and I want a nice watch, like,
yeah.
let me see what they have. Like, holy smokes, it could probably be a little like, "Ooh."
Yeah, I guess for the uninitiated, right? I mean, it could
Yeah,
be, right? Uh, I don't know. I'm not trying to be necessarily an Omega apologist here, or being a contrarian to Andrew and Watchfinder, but I think they're just making a whole lot of something out of nothing here. It's either you like the Seamaster or you don't. Um, for a lot of people, it is the top dog. For a lot of people, they rather have a S&P 300, S&P 300 over a Rolex, over a Tudor, and there's a lot of people who rather have a Submariner over an S&P.
right,
It is what it
right.
is. So,
I think and I know like some people have said it this week when we were having this discussion. Like, I think the PO is probably a little more comparable in quality to the sub than the SMP. Like, really, the SMP is their entry level diver. I mean, they have
mm,
divers in between the SMP, priced in between the
mhm.
SMP and the sub. Like
Mhm.
the PO, I don't know, maybe it's because it's a chunkier, thicker watch. It doesn't get compared to the sub like the SMP does. But I personally, having owned both, I think the sub sort of
Yeah.
kind of knocks the. But it's also double the price of the SMP in many cases, so
Yeah.
it
And
could
what's
be
interesting
better.
and what's interesting, like, you and you bring up and that that's great that you bring up the Planet Ocean. And the Planet Ocean and the SMP are so different aesthetically
Mhm.
that it's great. I mean, like, like, I mean, I like that Omega gives you that option. That you have two different type of professional divers that look nothing alike, or mostly nothing alike, and yeah, and they offer that. I mean, I think that's great. I mean, to me, and I don't get overwhelmed by thinking about all the other Planet Oceans that are out there. I don't know.
I'm
I
in a
guess,
quandary with
yeah.
Omega because I like the looks of the SMP better than the Planet Ocean, just
Mm,
personally, but I like the bezel action and
mm,
bracelet of the PO better.
mm,
And I
mm.
like the handset. Like, I like the one thing he didn't mention that's kinda divisive is the skeleton handset on
Here,
the SMP. I
yeah.
like it. I like it
I
better
like it.
than the
Yeah.
arrow hands on the, PO.
Yeah, I don't mind the skeleton handset. I mean,
Yeah.
and Deech hates the skeleton handset. He's on the chat. Hey, let's see what the speaking of
Alright.
Deech, let's see what the chat has to say here. Hey, when's the milk cartons for Sanjay's picture coming out? He had no stream from Sanjay last night. I'm sure he's really, really busy. Um, Jthor
Yeah, I hope he's
thinking,
doing okay.
yeah, I'm sure he's fine. Watchfinder way off base. Jthor says. Ken is checking in from Pittsburgh. Hi, Ken. Um, let's see here. Mr. Casio saying that the Heritage Seamaster 300 has a great
Yeah.
bezel.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, Deech is saying definitely agree. The bezel on the 2254.50 really stinks. No taper is noticeable as well. Only Seamaster I really like for UWC is the vintage 165.024. That's what I'll have to say. Like some of those reference numbers on Omega are just like ridiculous. Not
Right.
not not like this, but I mean, like, especially like those Speedmasters with like a dozen numbers. I mean, like, really. Anyway, uh, tutors actually suck for resale. BB58 and Pelagos 39 take huge hits, um, because there's so many. Um, Mr. Cassius, I do wonder how Tudor can sell the Meta certified ceramic watch for so cheap. That's a good point. And he also likes how Omega keeps putting out interesting Seamaster Pros, like the gold bezel on the Netcon version. Mike MNJ BB58 always seemed boring to me. And Waveman says, I can say I'm thoroughly confused by Omega's lineup and website to an extent I don't care enough to figure it out, so I tend to pass them over. Fair enough. Fair
Yep.
enough. Okay. Hey, let's put that one to rest. Good choice there, Clayton. And let's go on with the next one. And the next video or podcast or whatnot we're going to talk about is the About FN Time Rate Our Watch Collections. Who is the best? Now, I gotta admit, I mean, I've heard of this podcast. I've heard that Adrian Barker was on a podcast, and I've never seen it. I've never seen About Effing Time before. It
Oh, really?
actually, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard of it. I've heard people talk about it and say some great things about it. Um, but it kind of popped up on my YouTube feed this week, and it was you know um, about rating their collections, and a couple things before I get into their watches and some of the reasoning behind it. A couple observations that I want to make about the guys. Um, First of all, Andrew from Time and Tide, I like their videos. Time and Tide. I think the quality of videos are very, very good. Always shot very nicely. Great scenery in the background. So I really like what they do. I gotta tell you, I came away impressed with Andrew. I felt like he, out of the three of them, was really into the topic,
Yeah.
really into the collection of watches that he had brought, um, and he was intrigued and wanted to discuss the other guy's collection as well. Like, he just seemed like he was like really into it that day and just wanted to talk. So I actually like him more now because of that. I always liked him, but now I'm like, I feel like he's a good guy. Adrian, I felt like Adrian was just like mailing in it. I feel like he was kind of like, I don't know if he was like into it or like just like annoyed. I don't know if I'm reading into that correctly. Maybe I'm not. But that was the perception I got. Like he was just kind of like there. I'm sure they do this pretty frequently, so I'm sure that maybe he just had a bad day, whatever. But I just feel like he just was kind of like annoyed to be there. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And then George, man, dude, that dude loves the smell of his own farts, man.
Oh yeah.
That dude is just like, man, this guy is really, he's patting himself on the back here. So I don't know if that's how he usually is, but man, he anyway. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's get into it, and I'll explain to you why I feel that way about George in a second, because I think you can see it in his collection, right?
Yeah.
So they each bring out their 5 watches from their collection, and they go through it one at a time. And George, I think he leads off the bat, leads it off with a custom Monaco, Tag Heuer Monaco, Bamford personalized. And he's like, "Oh, I should have gone with the carbon, but I went with this one because it personalized." And meanwhile, like I love the Monaco. I love the Caliber 11 version of the Monaco. I like even what he did with his personalization of the dial. But man, he was really proud of himself. So I mean, I don't know anything about George. So any people in the chat, let me know. Does he work for Bamford? It certainly sounds like he works for Bamford.
Oh, he is George Bamford.
Oh,
So
okay, he's George Bamford. Okay,
yeah.
there you go. There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Well, okay, now that's all coming together.
Yeah.
But still, he still likes the smell of his own farts, which is like I can't stop saying that because I heard that from what movie did I hear that from? It was a Pacino. Pacino said that some in some movie. Anyway, um, but yeah. So he was definitely again. Definitely pat himself on the back. Andrew came in with a studio underdog. There's this guy, and I got to tell you, man. I I've seen these studio underdog releases come out in the last like year or two. They had that watermelon style chrono color scheme chrono
Yep.
like Desert Sky, but just a watermelon version of it. I thought that was kind of gimmicky, but I got to tell you the way that Andrew talked about it, and then rationalizing his pick as how his collection strategy has changed because he's a journalist now, like and he's like reporting on these watches, and how these watches remind him of people and the sentimental value, and how this one reminds him of I forget the guy who started Micro Mondays. um
Yeah, I can't think of it right now.
yeah. um Man, I want one now. I want a studio underdog now. Like, like the way he was passionate about it. Like I just thought that was really, really cool. And these watches are, like, sub 1,000. Um, kind of like definitely micro brand style, you know what I mean? Definitely not gonna hold any kind of value or whatever, but it's kind of like, do you want to throw your money away? Anyway, I don't know. I just kind of I like Studio Underdog a little bit more now
They sell
because
fast when they come out, and
they
I
do.
think they do actually hold their
Yeah,
value.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're probably right. They do. I mean, I know they make the Chrono. They make it like a regular 3-hander. But man, yeah. I mean, I like it. I like it now, and I like the way Andrew put it together. Uh, Adrian from Bark and Jack led off with the Kermit. Um, and I gotta say, in regards to Adrian's picks, very very Rolex heavy, as we'll go on to see. Um, but I feel like look with the other two guys, and this saying this, and I like Andrew too, okay, but I'm saying this in mind, like I felt like these were really Adrian's watches.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like this is the other guys were, I think, there was just uses like pieces that they picked up, and just like, but Adrian, I feel like, this is like he's got his heart and soul more involved. Now, I'm sure these guys all have other pieces that they have in their collections, right? That they may have more of uh, a feeling for, or love and passion for. But I mean, these Adrian came with the watches that he loves, and so to him, this was the 15th anniversary Submariner for sub with maxi hands and case, the Kermit, and it meant a lot to him. I think it was his first Rolex that he ever bought, or one of his first luxury pieces, even before his channel started or even took off. Um, I'm going to speed this up a little bit. George then went with the Bremont S500 Bamford edition, the California dials, sandwich dials, liquid blue, loomed. Again, patted himself on the back with this one. Andrew went with a Longines Big Eye, which I liked seeing. He really liked that watch because it's a strap monster, and he loves NATOs and straps. Adrian going with the Explorer, his bread and butter watch, right?
Yeah.
His favorite watch in the collection. Very subtle watch, not screaming, Rolex, look at me kind of watch, but very low key Rolex. He loves that piece. George going back here with the Frank Miller Curvex Snoopy Crazy Hours Bamford edition. I like Frank Miller. I like Crazy Hands. Not so crazy about the Snoopy on this one, but whatever. It is what it is. Again, George doing a little bit of this on that one. Andrew now going with a Datejust, with the mint down Datejust, and he had said that admittedly that he tries not to have a Rolex in the collection, but then he also said like it feels like you need to have a Rolex in the collection to make it fulfilled. And so he's had Rolex in the collection before. He really likes this one. It's a really classy looking watch. Bracelet feels great. It's like they do something with that bracelet. I don't know. They must put crack on that bracelet. I think
Yeah.
for me, I mean, because when I wore
Me
my
too.
sub, I was like, this is the best feeling bracelet I ever had. Like
Yeah.
the tactile sensation with the skin, just a great watch. Adrian went with the Explorer 2. Um, George went with a white ceramic Laureato Bamford edition. I like
I
the
do like that
Laureato.
one. I like that one.
Yeah, it's a cool watch, right? For sure. It was a kind of like a size where men and women could wear it. So, and he kind of regretted only doing a certain amount. He wished he did more. Andrew then won another white ceramic watch, the Hublot Big Bang Unico, a watch that he kind of had in and was reviewing it and doing some marketing for or whatever or videos and whatnot, and it's a watch that he ended up getting. And not kind of like I felt like it was like a surprise to him how much he liked it or was thinking about it. Adrian then brings out the IWC Mark 20, a watch that he got in for review and didn't want to send back. It's almost never happened to him before, and he can send that, and that's a good looking watch too, right? Um,
Yep.
Wrapping
Yes.
up their collections, George went with the Chopard Mila Miglia GTS Power Control Desert Racer, another Bamford creation.
Kind of
Um,
cool watch though with
it
that. I
kind of
like that power reserve.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Andrew went with a watch that he helped design, the Nevada Gretchen second segundo segundo, I think,
Hmm.
time and tide Chaos Master. He worked with the brand, and not only did that, he worked. Is going for charity. So a watch that he was very very proud of. And then finally, Adrian goes with the Rolex GMT Master 2. Sexy cool watch. I agree. My favorite Rolex out of all the Rolex is the root beer. Um, just a great piece. Okay, so went a little long in the explanation here on the watches. What do you think, Clayton? Whose collection do you like the most out of here?
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with George Bamford. I liked his George Bamford Talks podcast. He did one about weird watches, and that's where I found out about. That's kind of where I got on my like vintage quartz kick and like the Vogard. I discovered that watch from that podcast. So when he's in that context, he's a lot more likable because he's not really talking about Tag Heuer or Bamford.
Hmm.
All the time. So he's a little more likable because I think he does have a genuine interest in watches. Like he's all about watches. Like he took his own Navitimer apart that he in high school because he was interested in how it worked.
Mm,
So, and he's proud of a major company he's created, which I can understand. But yeah, maybe not my favorite watches, but definitely it's a toss up between Andrew and Adrian, who had the most like authentic. I liked Adrian's collection the best because he didn't. It wasn't a collaboration with somebody, or it was
mm,
watches that he wears that he picked. He bought them like you and I would buy them, or any of us in the chat, not because
hmm
we were affiliated with it in any way or given it. We weren't given it to us. He bought them, and he wears them for a specific reason because he likes them, the same reason we wear watches. So it was the most relatable. Andrews was somewhat relatable. Like he had some good stories, like you said, with the
Yeah.
studio underdog and even the Nevada Grenchen because it's going for a good cause. But I liked what Adrian said toward the end too, where he just feels like it's wrong for him to do. He's been approached to do like collaboration watches with brands, and I feel like uh, I feel like when content creators do watches with brands, I feel like I can't take anything they say about that brand seriously from this point forward because they're sort of in bed with that brand, right? Like, good for them. Like, gosh, it'd be hard to if a brand wanted to make a watch with me. I'd be over the moon, but would I do it? I don't know. But yeah, so Adrian just had the most authentic. Even though, yeah, he calls himself. If you watch or listen to that podcast a lot, he's known as Captain Boring because his favorite watch is the Explorer, and he likes boring
Yeah.
watches, boring watches. Compared to what George likes, crazy watches. So compared to what George likes, Adrian's boring. So yeah, it was just the most authentic, I think.
Yeah, for me, like you, it's between Andrew and Adrian. Um, I'm sure George, like you said, loves watches. I just don't like. I didn't like. I didn't really. I wasn't crazy about any of the ones that he showed. You know what I mean? Like, it's just felt like it was an advertisement for Bamford, right? I mean, and whatever. It's his company. Okay, great. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's not really his collection. You know what I mean? I don't know. Anyway, like again, Andrew, he was great, very very passionate. Love to see the rest of his collection, for sure. But I gotta agree with you, Adrian. Just more authentic feeling about it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like, like I feel like his heart and soul is in those watches. Now, not to say that George. I mean, I'm sure George works very, very hard with the brands to make these collaborations up. And I'm sure he puts like his heart and soul in it too. It's just like I guess I just can't root for him. I just can't root for him like I could, and I can't even root for Adrian. But I mean, like in this situation, like like I just feel like he lives and dies by some of these pieces, and there's a lot of um there's a lot of mental energy that goes into like thinking about them and whether he should pick one up, whether he can part with one.
George is
um
loaded, so he can just really.
I
I know
guess
he
so,
he
man.
always says that he has like a threshold of spending he won't go over, but that guy
Yeah.
has a. They've even like all the watches those guys wear, like for their wrist
Mm.
checks. I think they're all George's watches. That he just has them lying around there. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
he'll like, oh, they talk about a Daytona. He's like, oh, I have one right here. He's just
yeah.
well, that's how he got started, right? Modding Rolexes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't want to come off as being too hard. I mean, like, I'm sure he's a really nice guy. He's just like, I don't know. I mean, like, this is like the first time I've seen anything
yeah.
like,
If this is
and
your
it's just
first
like,
exposure, then
yeah,
I
yeah,
get
yeah.
it. Definitely.
Hey, let's see what the chat says, and hopefully, maybe the chat has picked, their choice. Um, hey, Hobby Lobby. I think Adrian knew his stuff was pretty run of the mill, so he was a matter of fact in his presentation. Yep, he owns Bamford. He's a billionaire. Okay. Um, oh, by the way, hey, Detroit Spartan. Good to see you. Deej is saying Andrew and Adrian are decent and seem to have valid points. George loves anything that he's co-branded design, and why wouldn't he? No, it's true.
Yep.
Deej is passionate about bonsai. Yeah, it's true. But I still don't want one. Yes. Okay. Adrian's a legend in his own mind. Andrew's part owner of a gin company he constantly promotes, but doesn't disclose that.
Oh, is he really? I didn't know
Hmm,
that.
okay.
Because like, what's it called? I forget what it's called right now. Twin pillars or something. But yeah, they always hawk that gin. Ah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Every collection needs a Rolly, underachieving watch collector says. I think there's some truth to that. Um, Hobby Bobby, Wilson saying props for actually watching that video, Hobby Bobby. In the video, Adrian's watches were beat. Definitely uses his watches. Hard not to
Yes,
respect that a bit. Yeah.
very scratched up.
Um, Hobby saying, Wilson, I do more about Evan time than I probably should admit. George wins best watch with the Ghost Laureato.
I do like that
Interesting.
watch.
What was that?
I like that watch. I think
I
that's a
do
sexy watch.
I do like that watch. I think though, I like, Andrew's, Hublot more.
Oh,
I think I
oh,
like his hu yeah, I mean, I know it's a Hublot, but, that Big Band Unico, oh, I mean, I think I like that watch more than the Laureata, and I'm a Laureata guy. Um, so for me, that was the best one. What do you think was, I hate to say the worst watch, but what was the watch that you saw and out of those 15 that you're like, "Nah, not for me."
um, I kinda like, I like Frank Mueller too, but that Snoopy Frank Mueller,
It's
I d
tough, right?
yeah, not my thing.
Yeah,
What was the 2nd watch? Also that
Bremont.
Banff yeah, that one was probably my least. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
with
yeah.
you. That for
Yeah,
me was my least favorite,
right.
of them all, the Bremont. I just don't know. Black dial. I mean, like everything was so black, and then you had like that very dark blue.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
you
remember
know,
the Bamford G-Shock? It was that color scheme too,
yeah,
black
yeah,
and
yeah,
blue.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But on the G Shock, I felt like it was a little bit better than. I just don't know. Maybe because it's just such a big watch that Bremont. Maybe because it's Bremont, and that's not my. I like some of the models, but that one just didn't. Yeah, for me that was clearly not the watch for me. But that Frank Muller, which I do love, and that Crazy Hands, which I do love, that
Yes.
was a close second because of the Snoopy.
Yeah,
So,
right.
okay, let's see here. His family's worth 10 billion. Good for them. That's awesome, man. Um, good. I mean, yeah, man. Anyway, well, awesome. Okay, I'm definitely a subscriber now to Effing Time and about Effing Time, and I'll definitely check it out, and I'll try to go in there with an open mind when it comes in regards to George. I'm sure
I
he's a
tune
great
them
guy.
out. Like, I used to watch when they first started. I don't really watch them anymore. Probably for
Yeah,
the same reason. Like, I just kinda got it's a lot of Tag Heuer. It's a lot of, George talking about, yeah, the watches he designs, and that's it. It's
yeah.
a lot of that.
All right. Oh, cat. I'm getting attacked by a cat here. Hey, you can see her paw. Final video this evening. Another pick from Clayton this week. This watch, that watch. How to spot great watches for the price at all prices. Go ahead, Clayton.
Yeah, this is an information dense video. I love his videos, and then I instantly regret picking them because taking notes is so it's laborious. So I'm gonna do my best so I'm not talking for 15 minutes here. I tried to condense it down, and then we could just chat about what we
Sure.
think value is. Yeah, he says you hear a lot of statements on YouTube like this watch is overpriced, this watch is great value, this watch you should get on the secondary market. I think we probably said a lot of those things already tonight, right? You said you hear a lot of that on YouTube, but nobody really explains why something is good value or why it's bad value. Well, he's here to do that. His first category is around $1,000. And it has to do with like the scene, he calls it SEEN. So he highlights the Doxa Sub 200, which has 200 meters water resistance and has the ETA 2824 movement. Then the Hamilton Khaki Expedition, that's that new one with the rotating compass bezel.
Hmm. Hmm.
100 meters water resistant, has the H10 movement, 80-hour power reserve. They can do that because they slow down to lower the beat rate. That's how they can achieve that on a watch like that. And then the Christopher Ward C65 Dune, also 100 meters water resistance, and has a Salida movement. They're all around that 1K price point, all around the same price. So he's like, it's what you can see at $1,000. You can often see the difference between good and less value at that price point. Like the Hamilton is all brushed. The case, the bracelet, no polishing whatsoever. Printed dial also compared to the Doxa Sub 200, which is at the same price, which has a mixture of brush and polish on the case and bracelet, and has applied markers and indices and logo. And then the Christopher Ward, same thing, a mixture of brush and polish, also applied indices and logo. Then you brought up the Studio Underdog, that new field watch that you alluded to, which has like 3 different layers of dial, and that's why it has those screws on
Hmm.
the middle of the dial. So also Very cool. He said, basic tool watches are cost effective and come across as good value, but that's not always the case. And then he said, plastic fantastic. A lot of these movements in these $1,000 watches are using plastic parts, plastic movement holders. We even know like Tag has, been sort of, ripped on for doing that in watches that are like $3,000-4,000, right? Plastic movement holders. And he said, there's more of a trend for these watch brands to not repair movements, to just replace them. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
we've talked about that as well. Um, so he said when you get to $3,000 to $4,000, it's more about what's under the hood, because the things you see are pretty good at this price point, right? Then he highlights the Oris Diver 65, your favorite, the Black Bay 58, and then the Seiko SJE 093, the group watch of many of us, although I moved on from mine. He said they serve the same demographic, essentially, sort of a smaller dive watches, similar specs and finishing. Not identical price. The Black Bay 58 is the most expensive bracelet. Then you get the SJE, falls about $3,500, and then the Oris Diver 65 can be had, depending on which movement, anywhere between kind of 2 and 4,000. The cases have better levels of finishing on the watches in this price point, right? Where you're just getting basic on the like the Doxa and the Christopher Ward, you're getting chamfered edges, beveling. You're getting some really, stepping up the finishing game on watches in this price point. The Oris probably has the most basic case with finishing, then the SJE, and then the Black Bay 58, and that's the most expensive because it has the best movement, that Tudor movement, 70-hour power reserve, COSC certified. Like I said, they run almost like high accuracy quartz. The My Pelagos is crazy accurate, like
Mhm.
1 second a day, maybe. It has the T-Fit clasp now. I think we're going to be getting that on all Tudors pretty quick here. And then he highlights Oris Diver 65 they did with Hodinky. That was about $4,000. And so, for about $4,000, you with Oris and Tudor, they're giving you longer PR, power reserve, and better movement. Seiko, isn't necessarily giving you that, right? That's why people kind of gripe and moan about higher end. Like, how can you spend $3,500 on a Seiko? The SJE doesn't even have a bracelet. It doesn't have a cost certified movement. Obviously, they're Japanese, but still, the specs are pretty all over the place, even though they run pretty well. But you'd expect maybe better specs for that price. Many of us buy them anyway, even though they kind of offer the least amount of value. So he said at this price, the brands are skimping on things you can't see. Everything you can see is pretty good. Like the bezel tolerances are
Mhm.
great, the finishing's pretty good, but the unseen things like maybe bracelet and movement are kind of lacking, and that's where you can spot the differences. And then we get to the $8,000 to $10,000 range. This is the unique value proposition. It's easy to feel ripped off at this price point. Sometimes there's diminishing returns in some of these luxury watches, right? And he highlights the 60th anniversary, I think, Seamaster Professional with the 60, and it comes on the mesh bracelet, even though it's stainless steel. That's $8,000, 300-meter dive watch, Metis certified, high end specs, great watch. Then the Submariner is about $10,000, obviously superlative chronometer, great finishing. Then the GOCQ, which is $15,000.
Mhm.
He said at this point it's really hard to discern which is the better watch, just by kind of looking at it. And what you see in each of them is kind of on par with the other one, even though
Yeah.
there's a $7,000 difference between that Omega Seamaster and the GOCQ. And so he said the Omega movement is a little long in the tooth, still a great movement. The bracelet needs a redesign. The maybe the watch in general needs a redesign. That's about going to be about a 6-year-old watch now. They usually redesign it by then. Um, and then, at these prices, you kind of need to check what's going on with the secondary market to determine if the value's there. We talked about it, right?
Mhm.
That's where you should get your Seamasters. I think that's
Mhm.
where you should get your Speedmaster, especially when a Sapphire Sandwich is 8K now.
Yeah.
That's where you should be getting, depending on what they're doing with discounts. Rolex obviously holds its value. Geo takes a huge hit, and Omega loses a bit, but not too bad.
Mhm.
depending. I mean, it does, but we're
Mm,
saying that's where you should buy them. But and, then emotion kicks in, perceived value. Hublot is all about brand. Like people want a Hublot on their wrist, even though they're giving you movements you can find in watches that are way less expensive, right? Um, Go, you're paying for old school watchmaking, for some hand finishing on the movement. Like you're paying for that, and some people are willing to pay more for the Go over a Submariner because they want that, right? So that's important to them. That's where emotion comes in, and maybe that's where value is really subjective. Omega is a bang for buck watchmaker. Like people always say that it's a lot of watch for the money. I think we said that tonight. Rolex is arguably the best mass produced luxury watch out there, right? So they lean heavily into brand. People put a huge value into Geo. Like I said, people will pay for that. Omega fanboys love their brand. Resale value be damned, specs be damned. And of course, Rolex people love Rolex for all kinds of different reasons. We assign values to our favorite brands.
mhm,
That's why I don't have a problem spending $3,500 on a Seiko. I think they're great, and I love Seiko. So, watches with luxury watches have obscene markups, right? Watchmakers got greedy after COVID. Everybody raised their prices. Even though secondary prices are going down, brands are still raising their prices
mhm.
like crazy. So then he just ended with a summary
Yeah,
about what he talked about. So what do you think of the video? Well, how do you determine value?
great video. I mean, a lot of thought put into it, a lot of layers to dissect. I really liked how he approached the $1,000 watch and like the $3,000 to $4,000 pieces. Makes a lot of sense with the $1,000 watch. And the fact that he uses like the Hamilton the tool watch as an example, you know what I mean? That they're skimping on some stuff here, um, but it's what you see, right? It's what you see in front of you,
Right,
that determines, where the value is in those watches, and that totally makes sense to me, right? Um, the 3 to 4, I mean, it's what's under the hood. It doesn't necessarily needs to be under the hood either. One of my favorite brands, Zen, right? That you'll see pricing on those consistently in the mid twos to $4,000 range. Great tech, great tech on those watches, right? You sure they're pulling in like an ETA or Solita movements or whatever movement maker they're using that's based on about Joux for their chronos and whatnot. But they do some work with those movements. They regulate it. It's not cost certified, but man, all my Zins I've experienced have told time very close to, pretty accurate, not maybe not like 1 second, but some very close to that, right? But you get the great tech with that, the tegamented steel, um, the anti humidification
yeah,
technology that's in there, etc. So there is a lot of other stuff to observe and delve into and try to figure out. The higher end stuff, man. That's difficult. That's difficult assessing value for that, right?
right.
Because he brings in the argument, and you explain it so well about how you feel about the brand, the perceived value. It's very subjective, right? I mean, like, you know why, what, you can go out there, right, and you can find a maybe an older Chopard LUC gold watch, or better yet, you can find some older Girard Perregaux, right? Gold Girard Perregaux for like 5 or 6 thousand, right? Same amount of gold on like a Patek is like 20, 30,000, 40, so much more money. I know it's Patek. I know it's like kind of an apples and oranges comparison here, but like my perceived, like, where's your perceived value in that, right? Is it the gold? Is it the name? And obviously it's the name here. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's just very subjective and very difficult. And thankfully, I don't play in those realms, because I would have a much harder time, I think, assigning value to those higher end watches. Um, yeah, I mean, great video again by Mike. I mean, very detail oriented. He explains things very well. I feel like it takes me a few days to think over his videos, right?
Right.
Because he's so good at convincing you of his argument I kind of like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And then I got to think about it for a little while. But I mean, I think he does a great job. How about you? How about you?
Yeah, you know, like, I'll use my Moser as an example. That's a watch that retails for a lot more than I bought it for, and they're selling for you talk about value, the way the price you can get them now on the secondary market, I think, there's a green version of the one I had, and I hate, like, talking price here, but I think Topper had it for, like, 14,000, and then with their 10% discount pre-owned. I mean, that's a watch that retails at, like, 25K, and to get it for that, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's that's pretty good value, and it's a you know, it's a great brand, it's an up and coming they've been around forever, but I feel like they're still sort of, like a lot of people don't know Moser. You know,
Yeah,
I
well, you got new
yeah,
ownership that's been
right,
with the company for like a dozen years now, so it's
right.
almost like a different company, even though the name is the same. Yeah,
I went to a watch event recently and I was wearing that, and nobody I talked to even knew the brand.
yeah,
They're like, "Wow, this is beautiful." And they're like, "Oh, I have to look into that." And like, "No, then you're gonna see how much they cost and probably be a little like, oh, he has a Moser." I don't like that necessarily. I'm always hoping like people know the brand.
yeah.
Yeah,
But going into that to that argument, the perceived value, like a brand like Breguet, right?
right.
You know, been around forever, makes amazing pieces of art, and that's another brand that gets slammed on the secondary,
Yes.
right? You know what I mean? Like if the same watch you took Breguet out and put Patek on it, it's like double, triple the money. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And to me, um, who makes a better watch than Breguet? There's a lot of brands out there who comparable, right? I'm sure maybe there's a brand that does it better, but again, that's subjective. But who does it better than Breguet? And like the perceived value of those watches are not like, so that's why this realm, this upper
Right.
tier luxury is such a strange place to be in.
And I think you're getting yeah, you're with Breguet, like, if you shop around, you can really find some amazing prices. I think, Tim Masso just did a live stream, Monday night live stream on, like, kinda bargain hunting for Breguet, and,
Mm,
yeah, it's like, "Really? I can afford a Breguet." Like, I nev that's one of those brands I never really thought about because it's
right.
just sorta, like, out of my I'm not sure it's quite my style anyway, but I was just like, "Those are way out of my price league," and then you do the math, you're like, "No, not they're not really if I just look around and hunt," and
Yeah.
hunting is what we do, right? That's, like,
Right.
the most fun part of the hobby, so,
Yeah.
if you are so inclined and you think they're just maybe a little too expensive for you, you might be surprised, especially now, it's such a buyer's market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll wrap it up. I mean, made a great point with judging, and we're alluding to this in this conversation about, those higher end, like, the real judge of their value, other than yourself subjectively, is the secondary market, right?
Yeah.
The pricing that's put there, using the CQ as an example, using the Rolex as an example of maintaining its value, or going up in certain cases, and the Seamaster losing, some of its value as well. So, just great all around video. I like Mike, and I like watching his stuff, and he is. Probably going to be a watch soup favorite, and he and
Yeah.
and and he watches, and he watches
Yeah.
and he watches it. He made a comment on the first one of the first shows that we did.
Yeah, I think he was he's kind of a gem in his channel. He's almost at 10,000 subs, like, it's
Yeah,
growing. He clearly puts a lot of work in, and I think he even said, like, he's sometimes guilty of coming off like he knows 100% what like, maybe he's saying them as facts even though he doesn't necessarily mean to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Um, Deech saying I enjoy his Casio God tier video recently. The guy is a gem in YouTube watch space. Great sub channel.
Yep.
Um, UWC saying I'm guessing Mike is a marketing executive. Um, and he also likes Amin's Brigade Marine. Amin doesn't have that watch anymore, though. Unfortunately, I think. Um, well, hey, oh wow, we just did an hour.
Hour exactly. Yeah.
Wow, that went
That went
pretty
by
fast.
fast.
That went very fast. Hey, so just a quick note before we say our final goodbyes. Next Sunday, there will not be an episode of Watch Soup, but Clay and I have been talking about doing a special watch soup the Tuesday following, so the 19th of December. And it's getting crazy. The Sunday after that is Christmas Eve and then New Year's Eve. So we may have to get creative with the stream dates in the next couple of weeks just to get it in. Clean. Hey, what do you got next going on, man? What's go?
I
What's
got nothing. I still haven't done an episode. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Hey, it's the holidays, man.
right, right. Yeah. It'll
Uh,
probably I don't know when I'll do another one. I
yeah.
feel like I'm Jeff McMahon a little bit, like I'm boring now because I wear the same watch, so I don't have anything to say.
No, 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 but I mean, we no, but you've almost reached collecting Nirvana though. You know what I mean? Like you're the outlier maybe
I do
actually.
have one lined up, you know how dogs, we, like, say a dog is, like, 7 in human years, so,
Yeah,
like, I've been wearing this watch for, like, 70 days now, like, how many kinda, like, in dog years or in, like, watch collector years, how many years really is that? Like, is that,
yeah,
like, a normal person who wears 1 watch, is that, like, 3 years? So I have an idea like that worked out, I just have to sit down and record it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's an interesting concept. The Almond Cell Strap Awards, Bob. Yeah, Chance. I think we're still trying to finalize the date on that. So we'll get a date on that very very soon for you guys. The Almond Cell Straps, our yearly awards show. Um, anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming on tonight and chat. Really appreciate it. Have a great week next week, and we'll talk to you soon. See you guys. Have a good
Yep.
night.
Have a great week.